Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 9th, 2023, the chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Roy, for 30 minutes.
I thank the Speaker. As usual, I thank my friend from Arizona for his dogged determination to try to shake this institution into not only recognizing, but, Lord willing, addressing the looming crisis or the already existing crisis that we are dealing with. He does so eloquently, intelligently, and without fail. Virtually every time I feel like I have a special order, I'm following the gentleman from Arizona who is making his case to the 14 people watching on C-SPAN. But man, those 14 people are loving it. But yeah, my voice is echoing like it often does in this chamber for a special order. But I'm here tonight because while I wish it was a full chamber, the fact is something that needs to be addressed that is shaping our public discourse is the extent to which my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, and in particular in the administration, are a little fast and loose with the facts. But maybe stated differently, the radical left, I'll call it, particularly in the administrative state, the bureaucrats, the organizations out there that are the engine of the left, have entrapped the American people with a laundry list of lies. As Thomas Jefferson once said, once a republic is corrupted, there is no possibility of remedying any of the growing evils but by removing the corruption and restoring its lost principles. And at the root of that corruption is when you're telling a constant barrage to the American people of things that simply are not true. It matters that we speak the truth. It matters that we deal with facts as objectively as possible. To quote Jefferson again, to seek truth wherever it may lead. I'm wanting to quote Jefferson as a graduate of the University of Virginia. Unfortunately, the University of Virginia is not the institution that it was founded to be in terms of seeking truth wherever it may lead. How about gender? Men can compete in women's sports, and it's still fair. Leah Thomas, a biological male swimmer for the University of Pennsylvania, and let's be very clear, if you have eyes, Leah Thomas is in fact a dude. That's just simple, obvious truth. Everybody knows it. Literally everybody knows it to be true. Leah Thomas won a 2022 NCAA Division I championship in the 500-yard freestyle instead of a woman. Thomas soared from a mid-500s ranking, competing as male, to one of the top-ranked swimmers in women's competition. Transgender women are the same as biological women, we're told. Biological males have larger hearts, larger lungs, and a 12% higher hemoglobin, which helps transport oxygen in the blood. Grown biological males have approximately 36% greater muscle mass than grown females. Yet, transgender women are the same as biological women. We couldn't even get our colleagues on the other side of the aisle to fully defend Title IX in the Rules Committee a few weeks ago. Title IX was the holy grail. It was a holy grail of equal protection. Now, it doesn't fit the narrative because transgender men, Leah Thomas, is apparently able to compete against women like Riley Gaines, and that's perfectly fine. You just ignore your eyes. Don't you understand? They tell you it is so. Leah Thomas is a woman now, they say. Oh, really? Parental rights. Parents cannot be trusted with their children's education. President Biden said it. There is no such thing as someone else's child. No such thing as someone else's child. Our nation's children are all our children. Let me be perfectly clear. My children are my children. They are no one else's children. And be dang careful in trying to claim otherwise. Parents who speak up for their children are domestic terrorists. One alleged, quote, terrorist, end quote, cited by the National School Board Association was my friend Scott Smith from Loudoun County. He's a domestic terrorist, they say. How about border crisis lies? The southern border is secure and things are better than you all expected, says the President of the United States. Well, since Biden took office, we've seen 6 million encounters, the release of approximately 2 million migrants, 1.7 million gotaways. Then Title 42 was lifted last week. The president says it's much better than you all expected. Well, we still have 3,000 or 4,000 a day. We still have thousands of gotaways. We still have thousands of pounds of fentanyl. And oh, by the way, Texas Department of Public Safety is having to stand on the border with razor wire and not doing their job to secure the people in Texas because they're making up for an administration that lies. And my state is the one holding the bag. Tell that to the DPS agents, Mr. President. Get your happy rear end out of Japan and go to South Texas. It's better than you all expected. The President of the United States doesn't have the courage to go to South Texas. That's the simple truth. According to the New York Post, migrants are being released in the interior with court dates that are as far out as 2035. Yet the president and his mouthpiece at the White House are trying to tell the American people, using every channel of communication, that the border is secure. It's, quote, better than you all expected. I would note that thankfully states are coming to the aid of Texas, who are spending billions of dollars and putting our personnel in harm's way, undermining our own security to deal with the job that the federal government is supposed to do. And by the way, we passed H.R. 2 that would secure the border. We did our job as House Republicans. And I would say, just as a point for consideration at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue and frankly throughout this building, including this side of the aisle, why would I vote for anything at all? Debt ceiling, government funding, anything until we pass H.R. 2 and sign it into law. Why? Why would I do that? I might be able to be convinced, but you better bring me a really good bill. If you want me to ignore the need for us to pass H.R. 2, sign it into law. I don't care the Democrats control the Senate. I don't care that President Biden doesn't want to sign a bill. I care about my country. I care about my state. I care about the kids in my county dying from fentanyl. I care about the migrants dying in the false name of compassion. I care that the Secretary of Homeland Security looked me in the eye in the House Judiciary Committee and lied under oath that we had operational control of the border. That happened. The Secretary of Homeland Security also lied when he said unapologetically that Border Patrol agents who report to him whipped Haitian migrants on the Rio Grande. It's just simply not true, and he knew it wasn't true. He had a memo given to him that said it wasn't true. He has now acknowledged it's untrue. Has he apologized? Has he apologized to the Border Patrol agents? Has he apologized to Americans? Has he apologized to Congress? Of course not. And with all due respect to my colleagues in this chamber, what do we ever do about it? We haven't impeached him yet. Have we, my fellow Republicans? We have not impeached him yet. He should be impeached. Are we going to limit funding unless specific riders are included? Are we going to hold funding for the Homeland Security Department unless we pass H.R. 2, forcing them to actually do their job? Again, I want to reiterate that the Secretary of Homeland Security lied about Haitian migrants being whipped by Border Patrol agents and then blamed it on systemic racism. Over the last several weeks, as the Biden administration has been increasingly on its heels, unable to explain why they do not want to take up our very responsible legislation that would increase the debt ceiling about $1.5 trillion in exchange for actual fiscal reforms that would save $5 trillion over 10 years, $1 trillion in year one, would end the unfair student loan program that would pick winners and losers, that would favor someone who took out student loans and hasn't paid them off yet over the person who had student loans and paid them. It would favor the person who took out student loans and hadn't paid them off yet over the plumber who set up a business and never took out student loans. It would favor the person who took out student loans and hadn't paid them off yet by granting them the same benefit you get if you serve your country, put yourself in harm's way, put your life on the line, get a GI Bill benefit. You're treated the same. Oh, you got your degree in gender studies from Brown and you're sitting in your parents' basement on your frickin' parents' insurance program at 26 years old while you're tweeting out leftist garbage, and you get the same benefit as the guy or gal who went overseas, sat in a foxhole, serving in the United States military. Oh, that's all the same. That's all fine. No problem. And you know what? The president is going to fight us on stopping the $550 billion that they've got set aside for student loan bailouts. I think that's unacceptable. I think we ought to shove it down their throats. I think we ought to go around the country messaging it. If the president of the United States wanted to play chicken with the economy and risk defaulting, it'll be on him. It'll be the president who defaults. The president is the one who will choose whether to default. Make the president own it. We've done our job. The American people are with us. They want fiscal reforms. They don't think we ought to spend money we don't have. They don't think $32 trillion of debt is acceptable. They don't think that we ought to pick winners and losers and pay off certain student loans versus others. They don't think we ought to expand the IRS $80 billion and hire 75 or 80,000 new employees at the IRS. They don't. They recognize that you're far greater likelihood of being audited if you're poor or a minority than if you're not, and they don't really think it's a good idea to expand the IRS. The American people don't want us to take money up to the tune of $1.2 trillion, according to Goldman Sachs, take those dollars, hand them off to corporations, 90% of the subsidies going to billion-dollar corporations. Elite, white liberals getting money from the government so they can go around and say how great they are, driving their Teslas, patting themselves on the back while they get enriched. Let me be very clear. They get enriched through government subsidies to then make power with wind and solar that can't actually sustain a grid. You can't even make this stuff up. We tell lie after lie after lie to the American people that somehow it is good to have, quote, green energy that literally doesn't work if you don't have gas or nuclear backing it up. Yet that's what we're going to do. Republicans passed in the debt ceiling bill measures that would reduce the so-called Inflation Reduction Act expansion of those subsidies so that we are no longer taking money from hardworking Americans, blue-collar workers, people out there trying to make it. We're either taking money from them, borrowing money or printing money, handing it off to rich, elite, white liberals who like to feel good about themselves for their corporate cronyism. It isn't capitalism. They're literally taking government money, getting rich for it. And if you're out there working hard and you're trying to get by, you're trying to put your kids in a private school so they actually can learn that this country is good, you can actually learn and talk about God, you can actually recognize, and I'm going to blow your minds here, that there is man and woman. Oh gosh, censor me. That there is in fact man and woman. So if you're out there a hardworking plumber, you and your husband or wife, whoever you are, you've got multiple jobs, you're working hard, you're trying to do right for your kids, you're driving a 15-year-old car, you're trying to get by, and these radical leftists come out and say, don't worry, we're going to subsidize Teslas. And you're like, oh goody, how much does that cost? Oh, that's it, $95,000. Oh great, I'll just go buy a $95,000 car. Well, how does that work? Well, you plug it in. Well, what does that do to my electricity bill? Like triples it. Oh, well, that's great. I'm sure that'll be affordable for me. And, what do I do? Like, if I need to drive from, Austin to Midland. Well, you won a prize. You get to go hang out in San Angelo for 2 hours while you charge your car. Who the hell wants to do that? Yet that's what we're going to do. And I listened to one of my colleagues sitting out on the steps earlier today. One of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. Whole class. There's like 100 minds full of mush sitting there just ready to be informed by the genius of my colleague on the other side of the aisle, informing them about how great it was that we were passing all these laws that would stop the production of CO2. They're, oh my God, thank you. Oh, you're saving the world. It's a lie. It's literally a lie. And we all just sit around going along for the ride. We go, well, what bills can we get passed? I don't know. You tell me. What bill can we get passed? But we got kids out there being told by members of Congress that we're saving them because we're somehow limiting what cars their parents can drive to actually go achieve the American dream, which they're no longer able to achieve because we actually knock their knees out from under them. And then we say, oh, don't worry, the solution for your problem is a government program. We're going to just keep giving you more money. We're going to pay you not to work. Don't worry, we'll subsidize your, we'll pay for your schools. Oh, don't talk about choice. We're just going to pay for those public schools because how else are you going to indoctrinate the kids with the lies? That's what's happening. Oh, Chip, you're a conspiracy theorist. Am I? What did we learn during COVID? Parents started looking. They're like, hey, my kid's sitting over there and they're looking at this little class on an iPad or a laptop. You're like, wait, what are they teaching them? What did they say? Wait, that was something. Wait, we're a racist country? Oh, you mean oil and gas? Well, that's evil? Well, but I thought our country was built on oil and gas. Wait a minute, I thought China has 1,100 coal-fired plants, and they're building 2 a week, and yet we're just going to decimate our ability to have a functional grid so we can have brownouts while we pretend that, you can have power on a, windless, cloudy day. They're out there telling the kids, oh, don't worry, we'll have windmills and solar panels everywhere, but no nuclear power. But I thought you hated CO2. Oh, no, never mind. Don't talk about that. That's literally the kind of garbage we're talking about, just constant lies. If you eliminate every internal combustion engine, every single one of them in America, you dent CO2 by less than a percentage point. Yet, that's what my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are telling Americans, particularly kids. We're doing this for you. Because if you do it for the children, everything's fine. If you do it for the animals and the children, the puppies, then everything's okay. We put legislation together to save $5 trillion over 10 years. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle going around saying, you're cutting the VA benefits. We didn't cut anything. Literally nothing. We simply put a cap in place that limits the total amount of spending to $1.471 trillion. Yes, that draconian amount of $1.471 trillion that we were operating on literally 5 months ago. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle, they run down to the floor and they say, you're cutting cops, you're cutting veterans. All lies. It's true, all lies. The fact is, the American people are sick of it. They are. The American people right now understand that the American dream, right now, the American dream is increasingly unattainable for them or their children. If you are measuring the ability to achieve the American dream by how many government dollars you're taking or what government programs you're on, or how much money your business is making because you're getting grants or subsidies or tax credits from a government that is $32 trillion in debt, and that even under the best circumstances, under our plans or the president's plans, we're still going to be about $50 trillion in debt in a decade. And we just act like it's not so. Like, seriously, just a note for everyone listening, all 14 of you. To my colleagues on this side of the aisle, we've been going around patting ourselves on the back because we passed a really strong debt ceiling bill that we should be proud of, and a really strong border security bill, H.R. 2, that we should be really proud of. I am proud of both of those bills. But now we have to fight for them. Don't blink. Stand together. You can't keep doing what we're doing, and you can't go home and campaign on irresponsible spending and balancing the budget when you won't actually do it. My friend from Arizona just walked through all of the mandatory spending problems. We're not even talking about that yet in what we're doing this year. We're just trying to hold the line on discretionary. Madam Speaker, how much time do I have left? I know everybody's holding on with bated breath for the conclusion.
The gentleman has slightly over a minute remaining.
Slightly over a minute. I'm sure I could do something genius with the last minute. Look, the fact of the matter is, this country is hanging on by a very thin thread, and we all know it. Our job in this body is to actually represent the people. It is, in fact, the people's house. To my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, where are you? MIA offering no plans to deal with spending, offering no plans to deal with the border. To my colleagues on this side of the aisle, I'm glad we've passed a few bills, but they don't mean a thing unless we force the president and force the Senate to do something with them. And that gets hard. And it's our job. Madam Speaker, I yield back.